Here we are Forge Pioneers fencing workshop. There you go. So this is day one of my swordsmanship journey. We're gonna have fun today. Fortunately, I wasn't able to join earlier. The class was full. However, fortunately, Coach Vier has offered to teach me on my day one. So this is going to be my first foray into Olympic fencing. Let's try! Hello everyone! I started the year with a goal of learning 3 new swordsmanship styles, and this is my first step in accomplishing that. This is my first session of Olympic saber fencing under the tutelage of Coach Vier of Forge Martial Fitness Pioneer. Here, Coach Vier is showing me proper basic posture for fencing. Chest up, back straight, with the right foot pointing forward to the target and the rear foot perpendicular. Lowered hips and bent knees for stability, and with the weapon arm at an angle, holding the weapon properly. This is the on guard position, and something that's a little bit unusual for me. Normally, my fighting stance is more upright and my hips are more square to the target, so this is taking some getting used to. I could definitely feel it on my thighs having done a leg workout the day prior. This is very taxing on the legs, and I admire Olympic fencers for their leg strength and power. The center of gravity has to be between the 2 feet, and when advancing, the body should stay evenly at the middle. Basically, Coach said that I shouldn't tilt or lean my upper body forward or backward when advancing, something that, as you'll see, I found quite challenging to do. Moving forward is done by pushing with the rear leg and landing with the front leg, and it's only when the front foot is down on the floor that the rest of the body and the rear leg follow. As you can see here, when I step backward, I lean too far back, which is something that should be avoided. In fact, Coach said I shouldn't lean back at all. Staying upright during advances and retreats is crucial. It's taking me a while to get used to keeping my body upright during retreats, and at this point I could definitely feel the burn on my legs. A good side effect of this is that I could easily feel if I'm leaning back during the retreating step. Self-correcting is crucial, and having such close instruction along with this video will help me on the days when I'm not attending fencing class and have to practice on my own, which, considering my schedule, will probably happen a lot. According to Coach Vier, having the center of gravity in the middle of both feet and not leaning forward or back allows for much quicker movement if you need to adjust. Here you can see just a few minutes into the practice, and my legs could definitely feel the effects of the previous day's workout on top of all of this footwork drill. all of the Olympic fencers I know and have met are very spry on their feet, and I could definitely see why. Here, coach is explaining that the goal is to maintain a certain distance between you and your opponent so you can strike at any time. And he is saying that there is a way to simulate 2 steps and an attack in just one motion. That is the lunge, the iconic attack most of us see when watching Olympic fencing matches or just watching Hollywood movies. The lunge is apparently the equivalent of 2 advances in one motion to counter the opponent's steps when retreating. Here, coach is explaining that the weapon moves slightly ahead before the rest of the body follows. This is very similar in concept to longsword fighting, wherein the weapon moves ahead before the rest of the body. This is to close the line and be much safer from counterattacks. When performing the lunge, coach says that the motion requires the kicking up of the front foot to point the toes up to the ceiling and pushing the rear leg at the same time. He didn't elaborate why this is done during this first session of mine. I guess he didn't get the chance to do so. But I've been told by others who do Olympic fencing that this is really how they train for it. And considering coach is a SEA Games gold medalist, it's safe to assume this works. So I just did what he said, and maybe I'll ask the next time why they train like this. Even during the lunge, proper posture is key. An addition that he had me do is throwing the left hand backward, which I was told is to both act as a counterbalance and so that the body pivots just a little bit more, giving a bit more reach for the weapon arm. Now at this point, all of the information I'm being given is starting to take a toll on my brain, and I'm starting to forget some things, like moving the weapon first before lunging. Hopefully with more practice, this becomes more like second nature and I can move as fluidly and as gracefully as the other Olympic fencers that I know. Now this part is very important. When lunging, the front shin should be perpendicular to the ground. Basically, the knee should be right above the heel. Coach explained that having the foot too far ahead is an over lunge, and having the foot behind the knee is an under lunge. In both cases, doing so would require extra movement or effort for you to return to the on-guard position. Something that in a sport where milliseconds mean the difference between winning and losing should be corrected as early as possible in order to not develop bad habits. Now this part is actually a surprise for me. Coach Vier explained that the weapon arm shouldn't always be fully extended out and that the weapon and the arm should form at an angle even during an attack. This is to ensure that the point is at head level, and in the event that you are parried, the sword is easily in a position that will allow you to parry the incoming counter strike, or what's known as a riposte, much faster. Having grown up watching shows like Zorro, Three Musketeers, this is something that was a surprise for me. We've always seen them attack with the arms fully extended out, but I guess that's for dramatic effect. For Olympic fencing, you don't do it because it's a game of milliseconds, and basically it's much more efficient to have very minimal movement that is effective instead of flashy, good-looking movements that will risk exposing your body to counter strikes. Coach Vier also emphasized that I should keep my shoulders relaxed. This is something that I'm already used to, especially with longsword sparring. But I need to relearn this, I guess, with Olympic saber fencing. I just need to get used to the new movements that I'm practicing and being introduced to. Having relaxed, untensed shoulders, according to Coach Vier, allows you to attack much faster, and I can see why. Another new concept, at least when it comes to Olympic fencing, or from what I know of Olympic fencing, is attacking with the guard just a bit offline. All this time I thought that attacking meant having the weapon dead on the center line, but Coach Vier is explaining here that having the weapon at a bit of an angle to the right increases the likelihood of the tip being at the center line and on target to the head. If the guard is on the center line instead, it's easier to flick the point off center and therefore off target, making you miss. Now at this point, my legs were really starting to burn. Although strangely enough, it is getting much easier to tolerate, which is exactly what Coach Vier said earlier. Another tidbit about having the weapon slightly to the right is that it's an automatic parry. Basically, in this position, I'm already covered on my right side, and it's easier to shift the weapon to the left should I need to parry on that side. Coach Vier also advised that I should take smaller forward steps instead of larger ones. This gives me more control of the spacing prior to the lunge. However, when retreating, larger steps are okay. In fact, it's encouraged. Because it makes sense. I mean, if you're playing defensive, you're required to create distance from your attacker, so larger steps are okay. So, I should remember that smaller forward steps prior to the lunge, larger steps when retreating. Halfway through the session and I'm still tensing up my shoulders during the lunge. It's becoming very apparent that this is something that I should work on regularly. When I spar FMA style, my arms are already very loose and relaxed. It's something that I'm used to already, so I should keep this in mind moving forward with my Olympic fencing training. Here, Coach Vier is explaining that when attacking, you want to maintain the position of the weapon to the arm as close to that of the on-guard position as possible. This is different from the iconic long arm reach we've all seen in movies, TV shows, and during actual fencing competitions. He says the idea here is it makes the tip travel faster in the shortest line possible, reducing the chances that the opponent can successfully parry your attack. Not only that, should the opponent successfully parry and riposte, your sword will already be in a position that will allow you to parry his counter-strike and do a riposte of your own. What I find funny and amusing is that this motion looks like Bruce Lee's punch. And I guess it makes sense because Bruce Lee was known to take elements from Olympic fencing when creating Jeet Kune Do. But yeah, if you look at Coach Vier demonstrating this, it's like similar to Bruce Lee's advancing punch. It's just a little bit of a nice trivia. It's becoming very apparent that in Olympic fencing, economy of movement is required. Here you can see that the simple parry motion is very quick. There's no frills, there's no complicated techniques to think of. It's just a refinement of simple, effective defensive movements. At this point, coach is teaching me parry 3 and parry 4. He says there are other parries, but for now, it's just parry 3 and parry 4. He pointed out that with the weapon upright during parry 3 and parry 4, it gives you a lot of protection from the hand all the way up to your head. So it's very good to practice this regularly and make it an instinctive movement. Even the riposte after the parry is simple as well. Coach says that the hand and the weapon positions are still the same, and it's just a matter of sending the weapon forward after a parry in the quickest motion possible. There's also this dynamic of the strong and weak parts of the blade to consider. Excessive motions or prolonged binds of the weapon can allow your opponent to displace your riposte, so quicker movements are better. Coach gave me a drill to practice until the next session, which is a parry riposte drill. Notice that whether coming from parry 3 or parry 4, the riposte looks the same and is similar to the arm and weapon orientation in the on-guard position. He's also reminded me to not lean forward too much, going back to the start of the lesson, and to step forward to close the distance instead if the reach is an issue whenever I attack. This was a really good start, and I'll definitely be joining the regular classes soon. And I'm going to start the other 2 swordsmanship styles as well, and train all 3 for the rest of the year. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you found this entertaining, and I'll see you next time.